Bernie Bro here. What's up? Let's talk about red baiting. In the 1980s, when the Cold War was going on, and humanity looked like they were going to go in and collapse and be extinct because of dumbasses running Washington D.C. and dumbasses running Moscow, Russia, the Soviet Union back then. We used to worry about what was going to happen to humanity. I mean, the nukes were aimed at each other, and the tension around the world was pretty bad that was going on, and during the early and mid '80s, had a lot of Soviet premiers dying all of a sudden. One would come in, another would take over, another would take over. 1985, Mikhail Gorbachev took over as the premier of the Soviet Union as someone who was a reformer. And while the rhetoric was still going on between Washington and Moscow, all of a sudden, because the communism of the Soviet Union and communism in general, which is an inefficient system, they were spending and spending and spending on their version of the military-industrial complex, and they pretty much spend themselves into bankruptcy. We're doing that too in America. It's just taking a little longer because we're beholden to the military-industrial complex. But Mikhail Gorbachev realized this, and he realized that they need to fix their economy. Now, he may have tended to make it a more efficient communism, but he ended up realizing, how failed a total command economy is. So, I mean, make a long story short, the Cold War was coming to a swift end. Ronald Reagan saw promise in Mikhail Gorbachev. Not the biggest fan of Ronald Reagan in the world, but this is one of his better moments when he had the United States and the Soviet Union sign some treaties, and Donald Trump got rid of the 1987 treaty that Reagan and Gorbachev signed that stopped having the nukes aimed at each other. Shame on you, Donald Trump. Shame on you. But anyway, point I'm trying to make is that the Cold War started to come to, there was goodwill between the United States and the Soviet Union, as it was called at the time. In 1988, as the mayor of Burlington, Bernie Sanders got married, and he and his wife, they honeymooned in the what is now the former Soviet Union in Moscow. And now right wingers are coming along saying, well, you see, it proves it. What? Bernie Sanders went to the Soviet Union for a honeymoon. He must love that system. Folks, Bernie Sanders knew what was going on between the United States and the Soviet Union and the softening of relations. It was a time where people realized there needed to be more goodwill between the United States and the Soviet Union. And it was not even against the law to go and travel to the Soviet Union. I mean, I'm not particularly a big fan of Vladimir Putin, but if I could avoid it, I'd go and take a trip to Russia to see it. It looks like it's a country rich in history. I would love to visit the Orthodox cathedrals and everything. Now, I don't like Vladimir Putin. I think his government is too right wing for my taste. I'm not one of those hiding under the bed like a lot of little silly liberals today. Oh no, the Russians are coming! The Russians are coming! The Russians are coming! That's or the equivalent on the right wing in this country. Oh no, Iran, 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 Iran. Um, the American political people are crazy on both sides. But Bernie Sanders went to the Soviet Union to celebrate his honeymoon with also goodwill with the softening and tensions starting to ease off and resolving the conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union peacefully. It was a very bright time. Um, and they're going to go red bait Bernie Sanders over this. Look, Bernie Sanders is what we need in America right now on a foreign policy basis. Now, in a rare moment where I will mildly, very, 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 very mildly defend Donald Trump as he's better on foreign policy than George W. Bush, that's a very low bar. Anybody can be better in foreign policy than George W. Bush and fucking Dick Cheney, who should be rotting in prison right now. War criminal pieces of shit that Bush and Cheney is. And they're all war criminals. Donald Trump is a war criminal. Barack Obama is a war criminal. Bill Clinton. I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of people who run the foreign policy um, departments and areas of the U.S. government are all freaking war criminals. And the people in other countries that do shit against the United States, they're war criminals too. I'm a pacifist. I am a third camp internationalist to this day. Back then, it was capitalism versus communism, whereby both communism and capitalism were both wrong. Today, certain segments of the West and the radical extremists within the Islamic world puts me also in a third camp internationalist position, where I want to tell warmongers and terrorists on both sides to fuck themselves and fuck off. But Bernie Sanders is right for this job, and even much better with Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard teaming up. Uh, Good things will happen foreign policy wise if the Democrats do the right thing, give the nomination to Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders chooses Tulsi Gabbard as his running mate. But getting back to the whole thing about the visit to the Soviet Union, so fucking what? As I said, I wouldn't mind visiting Russia myself. I don't like the government of Cuba, but would I go? Would I go and visit Cuba? Sure. I don't think it'd be that much different from visiting Puerto Rico. I'm half Puerto Rican. Uh, I may not look it, but my mom's Puerto Rican. But we're similar people. I'm half Hispanic, but we're similar people. And so, yeah, I would be curious to visit Cuba. I'd be curious to visit the Dominican Republic. I love to travel. I love to see the world whenever I get a chance. I just came back from Ireland back in October. Beautiful country, wonderful people that they are. But I'm ranting long enough, folks. Listen, support Bernie Sanders and don't believe the crap the right wing says against them. For nonviolent and peaceful revolution. And please comment and subscribe.